Is Africa turning its back on the West and aligning more with non-Western countries? A growing number of African nations, including Burkina Faso, are signaling that they've had enough of exploitative aid packages and the strings that come with them. They're ready for new partnerships, new rules, and a new kind of power dynamic. And for many, BRICS offers just that. But is this transition as smooth as it seems? And how is France, the former colonial heavyweight in West Africa, reacting as the balance begins to shift? Let's take a closer look. Burkina Faso's bold move to consider BRICS membership isn't just a diplomatic headline, it's a seismic shift. It represents a departure from decades of Western alignment, particularly with France, and a declaration that the country is ready to chart a new course. The question on everyone's mind is, why now? And what does this really mean? BRICS, short for Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, is not just an acronym. It's a rising geopolitical force. The alliance was formed to counterbalance Western-dominated institutions like the IMF and World Bank, and it's rapidly becoming a beacon for nations seeking alternative paths to development. For Burkina Faso, the appeal is obvious. Years of political instability, violent extremism, and chronic dependence on foreign aid have left the country frustrated. Since the 2022 military transition that brought Captain Ibrahim Traore to power, there's been a notable shift in tone and direction. France's influence, once entrenched through military operations like Operation Barkhane and economic ties to the CFA franc, has come under increasing scrutiny. Despite France's presence, terrorism has only grown more aggressive. Jihadist attacks have surged since 2015, targeting both civilians and security forces. For many, this failure of the Western security model was the final straw. That's why Burkina Faso is turning to BRICS, not out of ideology, but out of necessity. BRICS members offer something the West often doesn't: respect for sovereignty, non-interference in internal affairs, and development partnerships without political strings attached. China, in particular, has invested heavily across Africa in infrastructure projects without demanding regime change or democratic reforms. This pivot comes at a moment when the West is distracted by internal political crises, inflation, and geopolitical hotspots like Ukraine. In that silence, leaders like Traore are finding room to maneuver. They're not just rejecting foreign aid, they are rejecting dependency. Burkina Faso's potential BRICS membership is a direct challenge to the old playbook of aid for obedience. But this realignment raises important questions. Is this truly independence, or just swapping one form of dependency for another? Will Eastern powers offer a better deal, or simply a different set of obligations? There's no easy answer. BRICS isn't perfect. It comes with its own complex dynamics. But for Burkina Faso, it offers a chance to escape the cycle of economic extraction and underdevelopment. And it's not just theory. We're already seeing signs of this new strategy in action. The Burkinabe government is nationalizing control over key sectors, renegotiating lopsided contracts, and asserting ownership over natural resources. The vision isn't about becoming the next puppet, it's about becoming a player. France, predictably, has not responded kindly. As its influence wanes in West Africa, especially after similar shifts in Mali and Niger, it faces the reality of a continent rethinking its place in the world. A continent tired of waiting for progress on someone else's terms. Burkina Faso's journey toward BRICS is more than geopolitics. It's symbolic. It's a rejection of paternalism and a push toward a future defined by Africans, for Africans. So the question now isn't whether the West approves. The real question is, can Burkina Faso stay the course? Can it leverage this moment into real sovereignty and development? Or will it be pulled into a new orbit of foreign interest? This isn't just a diplomatic reshuffle. It's a statement. Africa is not waiting anymore. And that includes you. Be part of the conversation by leaving a comment in the comments section below. Is BRICS the future for Africa, or just a different shade of dependency? Don't forget to like and subscribe for more breakdowns of Africa's global transformation. Let's keep digging. BRICS isn't just an alliance. It's a new vision for global power. One where countries like Burkina Faso are not just included, but empowered. That's the fault line the West didn't expect. Because for far too long, Western engagement in Africa has come wrapped in the language of development, but laced with conditions, hidden agendas, and a deeply rooted paternalism. Yes, the West brings resources to the table, but those resources come with strings, trade agreements that entrench dependency, IMF loans tethered to austerity measures, and financial aid designed less to uplift than to influence. Whether it's economic leverage or political control, the West rarely gives without expecting something in return. BRICS offers a radically different approach. It's not about domination, it's about partnership. It's not about dictating reforms, it's about respecting sovereignty. And for Burkina Faso, that difference matters. Countries like China, India, Russia, Brazil, and South Africa understand what it means to challenge a global system built to favor the few. They've been there. They've navigated the same legacy of exploitation and marginalization that much of the global South still battles today. But instead of offering sympathy, they offer opportunity. Take China's Belt and Road Initiative, not just a slogan, but a global network of ports, roads, railways, and energy grids connecting developing nations to markets and to each other. These aren't charity projects. They're long-term investments, reshaping trade routes and building the infrastructure Africa needs to thrive. That's what makes BRICS unique. It's not giving favors. It's giving countries like Burkina Faso a stake in their own future, on their own terms. The West, despite its rhetoric, has never been able to offer that kind of freedom. Its systems, from financial institutions to diplomatic frameworks, are designed to maintain imbalance. Even when aid is well-intentioned, it often comes with a cost: policy concessions, resource extraction rights, or quiet political alignment. In contrast, BRICS is opening doors without demanding that Burkina Faso walk through them in chains. China's push for renewable energy across the continent is a clear example, from solar plants in Kenya to wind farms in South Africa. These are not short-term fixes. They're blueprints for lasting energy independence, projects that Burkina Faso can plug into, not as a client, but as a collaborator. And then there's the big picture, the one the West is most afraid of. BRICS isn't just building infrastructure. It's building alternatives to the dollar-dominated global financial system, to Western-dominated institutions like the IMF, and to economic models that have trapped nations in cycles of debt and dependency. The New Development Bank, NDB, backed by BRICS, is already funding massive projects across the global South, without the punishing prerequisites Western lenders typically impose. It's not just about money, it's about power and who holds it. And this is where Traore's Burkina Faso stands out. He isn't just rejecting Western aid, he's rejecting the terms that have historically come with it. He's choosing sovereignty over subservience. Not because the West never offered help, but because it never offered freedom. That's the difference BRICS brings to the table. Its members know what it means to fight for autonomy, to rise from colonialism, to reclaim dignity from systems designed to deny it. So what can BRICS offer that the West never truly could? Liberation, not just economic, but systemic. A chance for Burkina Faso to help shape the future, rather than be shaped by it. Because at the end of the day, Traore doesn't want Burkina Faso to be another case study in foreign-managed development. He wants it to be a force, a builder, a nation that refuses to be written into someone else's playbook. And with BRICS, he just might get there. True empowerment was never part of the Western playbook. It's just not in their DNA. The West may offer aid, but it always comes on a leash. tethered to expectations, conditions, and a relentless need to maintain control. BRICS, on the other hand, represents something far more meaningful: cooperation built on mutual respect, with no ideological strings attached. And in this pivotal moment, that's exactly what Burkina Faso needs. So how has the West reacted to Burkina Faso's bold step toward BRICS? Predictably, with diplomatic niceties masking deep concern. On the surface, you'll hear all the standard language: support for multipolar relationships, respect for Burkina Faso's sovereign choices, and the usual talk of global cooperation. But we all know better. Beneath the calm, polished statements, the West is deeply rattled. Because this isn't just a shift in foreign policy, it's a tectonic realignment. Burkina Faso's embrace of BRICS challenges the very structure of global power that the West has dominated for decades. Let's start with the economic implications. For years, Burkina Faso, like many African nations, has been ensnared in the financial web of institutions like the IMF and World Bank. These Western-backed entities often operate under the guise of development, yet their assistance typically comes with burdensome conditions: structural reforms, austerity measures, and governance changes that rarely reflect local realities. Instead of fostering independence, they lock countries into cycles of dependency, ensuring that economic growth serves external interests, not domestic needs. Now, Burkina Faso is cutting that cord. Through BRICS, it gains access to the new development bank, NDB, which offers financing for infrastructure and development without the traditional strings. This isn't just about money. It's about liberation from an economic system that was never designed to let Africa lead. Naturally, the West is alarmed. Because if Burkina Faso can step out of line, what's stopping others from doing the same? If this move succeeds, it opens the floodgates. Other African nations, long weary of one-sided partnerships, may begin to follow suit. And if that happens, the finely tuned Western economic structure, carefully crafted to maintain influence over the global South, could begin to unravel. But the real panic in the West isn't just economic, it's geopolitical. Africa has always been a strategic prize, rich in resources like oil, uranium, and gold. For decades, Western powers have maintained influence through military bases, humanitarian programs, and economic agreements. But now, with Burkina Faso joining BRICS, the message is loud and clear: Africa is done playing by the old rules. And this is not an isolated incident. Across the continent, we're witnessing a broader shift. From Mali to Niger, nations are breaking away from the Western orbit, gravitating toward BRICS, especially China and Russia, who offer cooperation without colonial overtones. This realignment terrifies the West because BRICS isn't just a political bloc. It's an ideological challenge. For years, the West has positioned its model of democracy, capitalism, and liberalism as the universal standard for development. But BRICS presents a countermodel, one centered on infrastructure, trade, and sovereignty, not Western prescriptions. Countries like Burkina Faso are seeing that it's possible to grow on their own terms, without compromising national identity. That shakes the very foundation of Western power. And the fear is not just that Burkina Faso might succeed, it's that others might succeed too. If the BRICS model produces real results, if it empowers African countries to rise without Western oversight, then the old narrative crumbles, and with it goes the West's monopoly on defining progress. So, behind the calm statements, there's a flurry of panic. Western policymakers are undoubtedly scrambling for ways to halt or reverse this momentum. We can expect an uptick in PR campaigns, invoking human rights and democratic ideals, painting BRICS as authoritarian or dangerous. But let's be honest, that has less to do with morals and more to do with maintaining dominance. Because BRICS, and Burkina Faso's choice to join it, threatens the very system that has enabled the West to control Africa for generations. Unlike Western powers, who have historically treated African nations as junior partners, at best, BRICS offers true equality. It invites countries to help shape global decisions, not just follow them. And now, Burkina Faso gets a seat at that table. A table not set in Washington, Paris, or London, but shared among equals. So yes, the West is anxious. And it should be. This isn't just about loans or trade. It's about reclaiming dignity. It's about Burkina Faso saying no more. No more dictated development. No more aid with chains. No more playing the background in someone else's story. With BRICS, Burkina Faso isn't just realigning its economy, it's reclaiming its voice. And the West, it's still struggling to understand that Africa is no longer asking for permission. Especially for a former colony like Burkina Faso, the West's reaction to its move toward BRICS has been marked by quiet alarm and outward diplomacy. While they may not openly admit it, it's clear that Burkina Faso joining BRICS challenges Western influence in Africa. It signals a broader shift in the global order, as more African nations seek partnerships that respect their sovereignty. If more countries follow Burkina Faso's path, the West may struggle to retain its dominance. Can Burkina Faso withstand Western pressure without BRICS? As mentioned earlier, the New Development Bank, NDB, could support Burkina Faso in times of economic strain. Aligning with BRICS offers a solid buffer against potential diplomatic isolation from the West. The bloc, which includes China, Russia, India, Brazil, and South Africa, holds significant weight in global institutions like the UN. These nations could push back if Burkina Faso faces international pressure or sanctions. Expanding trade through BRICS also allows Burkina Faso to reduce its economic dependence on Western powers, particularly France and the EU. Stronger ties with countries like China open access to larger markets for African exports. Still, the West has a history of using both overt and covert methods to destabilize countries that drift from its influence. If Burkina Faso deepens ties with BRICS, there could be attempts to undermine its political stability. However, BRICS offers alternatives in terms of defense and intelligence support. Russia, in particular, has increased its military cooperation in Africa, providing assistance that could help Burkina Faso counter external threats. The presence of groups like Wagner in other African nations shows that BRICS-aligned support is a real possibility, though it may draw criticism from the West. Ultimately, Burkina Faso's move toward BRICS reshapes the global narrative. More countries in the global south are turning away from Western-led development models in favor of partnerships through BRICS. Burkina Faso has the chance to position itself as a leading voice in this new multipolar world, where African nations no longer take a back seat to Western interests. This shift could attract support from other African, Asian, and Latin American nations that share its desire for a more balanced global system. With the support of BRICS, Burkina Faso is far from isolated. If the West applies pressure, it may still endure and thrive. But what do you think? Will the West ever accept this shift? And is Burkina Faso's future safer with BRICS at its side? Tell us what you think in the comments section below. We explore the rich history, culture, and the ongoing struggle for sovereignty in Africa. Join us in this important conversation by subscribing to our channel. By subscribing, you're not just staying informed, you're becoming part of a movement dedicated to reclaiming Africa's rightful place on the global stage. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Let's work together to spread knowledge and inspire change. Thanks for watching.